Once upon a time, early in my career, I was having a little trouble with my secret identity. People close to me were putting together the idea that someone who looked an awful lot like Matt Murdock was probably Daredevil. I didn't have much time to figure out a solution, so I did what I often do in these situations. I leapt and I figured I'd worry about the fall on the way down. I made up a secret twin brother and told everyone he was Daredevil. It was one hell of a leap. His name was Mike Murdock, and he was a piece of work. Daredevil, aka Matt Murdock, has had some of the best stories in Marvel, but it hasn't always been this way. Back when smoking indoors and slapping your missus was standard practice, the stories for Daredevil were certainly lacking. In my unprofessional opinion, 60s Daredevil comics are some of the most grueling, hard to read comics, and nothing proves that point more than the creation of Mike Murdock. We are first introduced to Mike Murdock in Daredevil issue 25. Karen and Foggy discover a letter from Spider-Man, and in this letter, Spider-Man blatantly exposes Matt's identity as Daredevil. Why the fuck Spider-Man decided to leave this dumbass letter, I will never know. Upon confrontation, Matthew, thinking on his feet, claimed that Spider-Man simply mistook him for his secret hidden twin brother, Mike Murdock. It was his only option. I mean, other than denying it because he's blind. Like, there's no proof this letter even came from Spider-Man, it's just a random letter, but never mind. Literally a few issues later when Matt gets caught in the Daredevil costume, no one thinks he's Daredevil because he's fucking blind. Now, to make the lie believable, Foggy and Karen actually have to meet the twin. So Matt disguises himself as Mike, and this is where I start to question this man's sanity. He plays Mike as a jarring, sunglasses wearing arsehole. Even more stupid than this, Foggy and Karen just believe it and barely question it. Despite never seeing them together, Foggy just takes it at face value. And I might sound like a grumpy boy. After all, it's just a fun, silly idea, but trust me, this shit gets worse and fast. Over the next few pages, we see Mr. Murdock slowly descending into madness. This man is poorly and he needs serious help. Let's take a look at some of the horrible shit this guy gets up to. Firstly, he relentlessly bullies Foggy for no reason, calling him fat all the time and slamming this guy out at any opportunity. And none of this is necessary. There are times where Foggy tries to defend Matt, and Matt still shits on him. Despite Foggy being his day one, Matt bullies the life out of this guy and slimes him out for a bit of pump. But it gets worse. Matt literally tries to bang Karen as Mike. He openly tries to seduce her while pretending to be someone else. I don't think I need to explain why this is bad, but it gets worse. Karen now feels emotionally pulled between the soft, kind Matt and the cool Mike, who are, again, the same person. And then Matt gets jealous of himself. At this point, he starts resenting the fake persona he created because Karen likes Mike more than she likes him. Later, he goes so far as to consider adopting that identity permanently by proposing to Karen as Mike. I think you get the point. But one day, praise the Lord, Matt finally kills Mike, pretending he died in an explosion. And this lies the end of Mike Murdock. Everyone believes he has died, and Matthew Psychopath Murdock doesn't even pretend to care. Matt, he was your own brother. He died defending us. Have you nothing to say? Can't you even put down that blasted Braille law book for a minute? Sorry, Foggy, it's too late for tears. We still have work to do. And then when Daredevil returns the very next issue, alive and healthy, Matt just says Mike had been training his successor this whole time. In conclusion, Mike Murdock perfectly displays my issues with the old Daredevil comics. Matt is an unlikable character placed in a stupid or a ridiculous or a boring plot. At least we can thank God that this is the end of Mike Murdock. Right? Ah, shit. The trouble was, once you tell people that you have a secret twin brother, eventually, they need to meet the secret twin brother. And if you don't actually have a secret twin brother, you need to be the secret twin brother. Enter Mike Murdock, or me, as Mike Murdock. I loved it at first. Mike wasn't Matt. I could be as brash and as brazen as I wanted. I could say the things I'd always wanted to say, especially to Foggy and Karen, especially to her. For a while it worked like a charm. Then things got odd. Mike was Daredevil, I was Matt, I was Mike, I was Daredevil, Mike was Matt, Matt was Mike. It was a lot of juggling. It was confusing, remembering who I was supposed to be at any given moment. I'd always had feelings for Karen, and now she had feelings for my imaginary twin brother. I even considered proposing to her as Mike for half a minute. It was time to wake up. Time for Mike Murdock to go into permanent retirement. I set up an elaborate plan, involving the unholy three. Seems like everything was more elaborate back then. Mike went out like a hero saving the day. My life went back to normal. Well, as normal as it ever gets. And that was that. Mike Murdock is gone, never to return. Which is why I find it extremely strange that he's standing right in front of me. Around 50 years later, Charles Soule reintroduces Mike Murdock into the lore of Daredevil. However, this time around, I found the way he was included to be genuinely captivating and interesting. We first see the return of Mike Murdock in Daredevil 607, where in this comic, you see from Matt's perspective, he decides to go to the bar with no name, disguised as Mike Murdock, so he can get more intel on the underworld. And you see Mike start doing things like trying to bang people's wives in front of them, and this sort of stuff inevitably leads to a brawl. At this point, the comic has you believe that Matt is playing Mike. However, we next see Daredevil arriving at the bar whilst the brawl is happening, and when he gets there, he sees Mike Murdock standing in front of him. The fake persona he created is alive and real. Matt assumes that he's seeing some sort of shape-shifting villain such as the Chameleon or Mystique, but the reality of the situation is a lot stranger. You see, while battling Wilson Fisk's corruption, Matt has teamed up with some Inhumans and other heroes. One of these Inhumans is called the Reader, and what's interesting about him is not only he is blind like Matt and has a guide dog as a companion, but he also has the ability to turn anything he reads into a reality, and this is an ability which he doesn't have the most control over. So what happened is the Reader was reading old Nelson and Murdoch case files, including stories involving Mike Murdock from when Matt used to pretend to be him. The Reader accidentally turned Mike Murdock from a stupid character Matt used to play to a real human being with subjective experiences and memories, a person who wants to live. And this is quite a new situation for Matt, and it raises certain philosophical questions. Matt's a Catholic with a no-kill rule. Would it be killing to erase Mike out of reality since he was never really real in the first place? But Mike overhears Matt and the Reader discussing their options. In a moment of fear, he runs away, taking the Reader's dog hostage. The next thing that we see is Foggy Nelson entering his office as he is greeted by Mike, and Foggy just thinks it's Matt playing some sort of stupid joke on him. But shit gets pretty real when Mike pulls out a gun. Mike demands Foggy gets him in contact with Matt, as Mike is unaware that Matt and Daredevil are the same person at this point. Despite the fact that Matt has kidnapped Foggy, we see that he doesn't actually want to hurt him. He even goes out of his way to protect Foggy when a bunch of villains got him mistaken for his brother, Matt. Mike is just acting out of fear, and he doesn't want to be erased from reality, but he doesn't want to harm anyone either. We see that he actually has a good heart. So Foggy finally gets Matt in contact with Mike, and Matt is pretty quickly convinced that erasing Mike from reality would be the wrong thing to do, since Mike has expressed he knows his origins are uncanny, but as far as he's concerned, he's real and he wants to live. Therefore, Matt leaves Mike's destiny up to God, allowing him to stay in existence. Later on, interestingly, we see Mike turn to crime, even going to Mayor Fisk's office and requesting to work for him. And Mayor Fisk teams him up with a criminal known as the Hood. If you've seen Ironheart, he was the bad guy in that. Don't watch Ironheart, it sucked. But yeah, no, I find this story particularly captivating as it managed to turn what was once an unbearable and annoying gimmick of a character into sort of an interesting moral dilemma for Matt, one he hasn't quite experienced before. This story challenges Matt Murdock and turns Mike Murdock into a new and interesting character, and the future for Mike's character is very promising. Now from this point onwards, Mike becomes a bit of a background character, and we see him show up like every now and then in every odd issue. He's still working for the Kingpin, but we see his loyalties are slightly murky. In one particular situation, he went out of his way to save Daredevil from Bullseye. But in Annual 1 by Chip Zdarsky, we get like another deep character dive into Mike. We see him fully entrenched in the criminal underworld. Since his partner is the Hood, who has magical abilities, Mike comes to find out that the Hood is in possession of something called a Norn Stone, which effectively grants the user the ability to rewrite reality to some extent. And we see Mike struggling with his existence as he knows he came into existence out of thin air. He knows he didn't truly live through any of his memories, and this tears him down quite a bit and leaves an empty gap in his heart, and all he wants to be is to be truly real. So because of this, he's extremely tempted by the magic of the Norn Stone, to the extent that he gets Black Cat to steal him a copy of a ritual book, and he then uses that ritual book to make him more than just a shell, to rewrite reality so he was always there and he had always existed. And it works. We see the origin of Daredevil retold, allowing for the existence of Mike. This time, Sister Maggie doesn't just leave Jack with Matt Murdock, but she leaves him with two baby boys. We see Matt go to law school, lock in, and be the man his father always wanted him to be. But we see Mike become what his father always feared, a man just like himself. And this story really explores where Matt and Mike went different in their upbringing, and how Mike ended up becoming a criminal just like his father. This story not only fleshed Mike into more of a real character, but also reshaped the Marvel Universe so he was always a part of it. And while I'm not the biggest fan of retcons, I can appreciate this one for putting character first and having a genuine in-story, character-based reason for making the retcon happen. The next key story we get involving Mike Murdock is in Chip Zdarsky's Devil Reign story arc. For context, in issue 23 of Chip Zdarsky's run, Matt is basically consumed with of guilt because he accidentally killed a man, but he had decided to take full responsibility by standing trial, not as Matt Murdock, but as Daredevil. And to protect his secret identity, Foggy enlisted Mike Murdock to impersonate Matt, and this basically created major complications in Matt's personal life. As Mike is very different to Matt, Matt isn't the biggest fan of this plan, and it even leads to Matt's love interest at the time, Kirsten McDuffie, being very unimpressed. But we really see this story expand in the Devil's Reign event, and more context. Wilson Fisk, as the mayor of New York, learns that Daredevil is Matt Murdock. Fisk had learned this secret ages ago in comics, but Daredevil used the power of the Purple Man's children to erase his identity from the world's memory. But Fisk is intelligent, and he knows something has happened to his brain, and he doesn't like it. It infuriates him, and it sends him west. He creates a plan where he also manipulates the power of the Purple Man to force himself to effectively remember what had happened to him. And this is where he learns Matt Murdock is Daredevil, and he used the Purple Man's children to erase his memory of it. Learning that Matt Murdock is Daredevil fully enrages him, and he launches a war on all costumed heroes, turning the Thunderbolts into his personal army. During this, Mike is working with Butch, who is basically Fisk's illegitimate son, who has stepped up as the new kingpin of crime, and Butch is very different from his father. Mike's job is basically his second-hand man, helping him navigate power whilst trying to ensure he doesn't repeat the mistakes of his father. You know, he believes they can build something better and something cleaner than Wilson Fisk ever did. However, when Mike finds out that Butch intends on assassinating Kingpin, his father, this pisses him off because they made a promise to each other that they'd be better than Kingpin and rise above his brutal nature. So they have a big argument, and Mike returns back to his apartment, but he finds it trashed, and you know, he thinks, oh, maybe it was just Butch coming in and, you know, trying to get some revenge, trying to slam me out a little bit. But the truth is far worse. Kingpin is in his house waiting for him. Mistaking him for Matt, he unleashes all of his pent-up rage and hatred, brutally and savagely beating Mike to death, punishing him for the life and the sins of his brother. All Mike ever wanted was to be alive, real and happy, but because of Matt's life, Mike got caught in the crosshair, a casualty of war. This story has the character of Mike Murdock turned into one of a tragedy, and it speaks to the ability of these amazing writers to turn a once joke and gimmick into a tragic tale of a man who only ever wanted to be real so he could live his life freely and happily, a man who loved his brother despite their different life choices, and a man who died trying to make the world a better place. And that concludes the story of Mike Murdock. A name that once gave me cold shivers and brown pants evolved into a mature, genuine, deep, important character in Matt's life, forever reshaping his history. Now let me know what you think about the story of Mike Murdock. Do you think it's a bit stupid? Do you think it's the retcon was unnecessary? Or do you think they managed to turn a once shit, lame idea into a genuinely moving concept? Let me know.